Whew, all right. Got a sip of coffee into me. We're good to go. So it's going to be a short one this morning, nice early one this morning. I got stuffs to do today, so that's the way it is. But let's jump into it. So for those who haven't joined before, this is the SitRep. I go through news stories that I find interesting from the perspective of prepping, and we kind of pull these apart and go, how can we better prepare ourselves as self-reliant, intelligent, rational human beings, and sometimes also Aussies and New Zealanders. That's kind of slant I put on it, in case you haven't been able to tell. I'm an Aussie. And then we can be better prepared and help ourselves out and help others out in the future if things get more hectic, which my prediction is, spoiler alert, they are. Good morning, Kieran, and good morning, Hannah. Good morning. Good morning. That's a good morning. Okay, no more Sean Connery accents. Unless you really want one, then I'll give you another one. Okay, so I haven't really gone through the stories today. I'm just going to chuck them up in no particular order. The main theme, or the main one I want to talk about today, is food manufacturing, food supply chains that have been attacked. And I'll circle back around to that, and have a bit of a rant on that, I think. But let's just talk about some interesting things to start off with. The Large Hadron Collider, CERN's Large Hadron Collider, or as I like to call it, the Large Hadron Collider, ramps up to record energy levels. So they've actually cranked it back on. They've started smashing particles into each other. They did that yesterday or overnight, setting a record for how fast they're actually smashing these particles into each other now. So, hey, world record, CERN, well done. And also a world record for the amount of energy they're using. I think what they're actually doing is they're going, hey, there's an energy crisis right now. People are struggling to keep lights on. People are struggling to heat or cool themselves. We're going to run out of energy soon. They've seen the writing on the wall too, and they're like, this is our last chance. We've got to fucking bang this out now. So they cranked it into overdrive. Are they creating portals to the multiverse? I don't know. Maybe. Hey, apparently, side note, I'm a Marvel fan. Apparently the new Spider-Man, which is one of my favorite characters, is going to be homosexual. So in all the multiverse, of course, there probably will be a version of Spider-Man, and maybe even yourself, who is homosexual. But maybe CERN will find out for us. That's the kind of questions I want answered, really, out of this crazy experiment. Is Spider-Man gay in somewhere in the multiverse? That's all I really care about. Okay, Mozambique faces hunger crisis amid soaring food and fuel prices. So overnight, a number of new riots breaking out, civil unrest, and I've talked about this every day. Expect it. This is going to happen around the world. We're going to see more and more of this. Not necessarily within Australia. It could happen here within Australia, but I was having a chat with a good close personal friend of mine, that Institute, Lauren, who sent me a cool video here on Ghana. They're having riots about anti-inflation because their inflation just hit 27%, so they're not happy. And I said, yeah, it's part of this, and while we're not seeing it in Australia, part of this is because in Australia, as a percentage of our gross income, we spend actually very, very little on food. Okay, so as a full percentage of what we earn, the average Australian, it's a tiny amount goes on food. A huge amount usually goes on rent. If you live in and around the city, most of it is going on rent, probably, but very little on food. In these other countries around the world, that's not the norm. They're paying whatever for rent, sometimes big, sometimes little, but they're paying huge amounts of their gross income on food. It's just sustenance. So when food increases, they feel it. They feel it hard, a lot harder than we do here in Australia. Even though I went and grabbed a coffee this morning, the TV was on. I was looking at channel 7 or 9 or one of those, mainstream media ones, and I was reading the subtitles, and they were talking about the floods that are happening in Sydney and in New South Wales at the moment, and how that's going to affect food prices. So food prices are in the mainstream media. It is getting, people are starting to get hit by this. This will start to have a flow-on effect. Okay, because I've been talking about, hey, prep up now. There's still food on the shelves. There's still ample opportunity for you to do it. Food is still cheap. I don't care if it's gone up in Australia. It's still cheap on a world standard, so we can do it. I think, though, my prediction here, my hit prediction, is that now that this stuff is really starting to get smashed in the fear cycle of mainstream media, that the mainstream sheeple will start to cotton on and go like, okay, I need toilet paper. And then when I've got enough toilet paper, I need food. So be warned, forewarned is forearmed, and start to head out now. Start to get those preps going. If you haven't started yet, start today. If you have started, do a little bit more. If you've almost finished, finish it off. Get this stuff done. I certainly in the next couple of days will be doing, hopefully, if I can get the time while I'm here in the big smoke, getting out to like Costco and just doing a little bit more, buying up a little bit more of the bulk sort of stuff. I think I'm relatively sorted, or me and the family, we're relatively sorted for our food situation for a number of months. I'm not too worried about that. Next thing on top of that is really start thinking about how you're growing food and things like that. And I said I'll cycle back around to this. It's the main theme of today. UK. So on the back of this, like, the developed countries aren't going to protest too much. Well, we are actually protesting. Australia, again, not so much, just because we're super compliant, super sheeple in many ways. Also, I think one thing, I always bag out Australians in not riding and not standing up so much, but we do have a background of resilience in our country, and we've got to remember that. So things like petrol prices going up, and that part of it is Australians just going like, oh, okay, petrol prices going up. Oh, I've got to pay more. Yep, okay. But part of it also is Australian resilience, where we go, okay, petrol price. Well, I'm just going to have to deal with that. We're going to have to do more with less for a little bit longer. That's not going to last forever, though. UK fuel price protest cripples motorways with go-slow convoys. Actually, like your normal protests and riots and things like that, that's an point of interest for me, because I teach people about that sort of stuff, and I'm always like, oh, okay. But I'm very interested in how alternative protests also happen. And one of the main ways is through things like this. So we saw this in Denmark, where the farmers were protesting about the idiotic crippling laws that they're starting to put in on their farming practices to make it harder for them to actually grow food for people. So they drove their tractors out onto the motorways and basically just created a traffic problem. Well, UK is doing that now too, and they're doing it over fuel prices. Fuel prices, I've always found every time I've looked at or been over in the UK, I'm like, wow, these guys pay a lot for fuel. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but they pay a lot for fuel. I'd say probably on average more than Australians, and of course more than Americans. Americans have had one of the cheapest fuels, cheapest average prices of fuel in the world. The only place I'd seen cheaper fuel was I was in Dubai or Middle East, or places that were producing oil, where in Dubai they didn't even have signs for how much the fuel was. People don't care. They just roll up, fill a tank, walk in there, and they're like, here's something in my pockets. And people are like, yeah, that's cool. On you go. Kieran, beer. What are you talking about, beer? It's a bit early for one, man, but I won't say no. Okay, so actually I'll just skip over that for now. UK, more stuff in the UK, which is just interesting, just popped up. We're going to see more political turmoil, more turnover within our political spheres, more shifting in political spheres as people get en masse more afraid, more uncertain about the future, I should say. So there will be more authoritarian governments, I believe. There will be more shifts. Sometimes they'll shift left, sometimes they'll shift right. But on the whole, I think we'll see a shift to more authoritarian and more, please, mommy, daddy, government, feed us, help us, clothe us, all that sort of shit. So UK is having a bit of turmoil. Obviously, they just had Bojo, so Boris Johnson just narrowly got through, or not narrowly, he actually seemed to do it pretty easily, but they were going to kick him out. There was a call for no confidence on him a couple of weeks ago. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's fine. It's UK politics, so most people wouldn't give a shit. But overnight, the UK Health Secretary and the UK Finance Minister just quit. And the idea, the theory here is, I haven't seen the actual release, the word from them, but what people are reporting on it is that they're saying, no, we've got no confidence in Boris Johnson's ability to lead. We think this is all going bad. We think it's all going tits up. So yeah, we're out. We're done. Kind of conscientious objecting of sorts. Again, I'm nearing the terminal point, or I'm just on the terminal point of Atlas Shrugged. Big book, tough read, written in a different time period where people had more patience to read more words. But the crux of it is that all the smart people in the world finally decide that they're sick of the mooches of people feeding off them and putting them down at the same time. So they withdraw their services from the world, essentially, and disappear from the world. Is this sort of what we're starting to see? And on top of that, they kind of sabotage everything, so everything fucks up as well. So there's no one to fix it. Anyway, we're starting to see people pull out now and go like, no, I'm not being part of this system. But at the very least, more turmoil for UK there, more turmoil in another developed country within their political sphere. What else we got here? Natural gas prices up 700% in Europe since last year, coming out of Bloomberg. Doesn't shock me. I just like to remind people of those sorts of numbers that are happening at the moment. That kind of general theory that like the system we have is eternal and everything's fine and nothing's broken and it will never get bad, or if it does get bad, it can't get that bad. Well, we're at the start of badness here. That's the thing. We're seeing 700% increase in price of energy or natural gas within Europe. This is the beginning of it at the moment. We're in it, but only at the start, and things can get a lot worse. Talk about some water events. Somewhere up around 50,000 people threatened by the Sydney floods at the moment. So obviously pretty close to home for me. A couple of hours away. A lot of my friends live up in Sydney, so thinking about them, hoping they're doing all right. Wild weather and crazy stuff happening in and around the ports too. One of my friends actually works in and around the ports, so like videos and stuff coming out of there is insane. But this is pretty huge, and this is on the back of Sydney having a number of flood events and or storm events. So if you look at it from flood events alone, this is like the fourth, I think, in a year and a half that Sydney's had. And if you look at it from storm events, it's almost been an unceasing series of storm-like activity that's been smashing into Sydney of late. So, could be some displaced people out there. And again, this is one of those things. It's like, hey, what would be really cool right now? A grab bag. If you need to get out of your house like that, if you're like, well, there's water, my feet are wet, shit. Or that dam that is set up, in and around a major city, which happened in one of the flood events recently, where Manly's one of the large suburbs in Sydney, like just in the northern part of Sydney. That dam burst and like people had to be evacuated. So thinking about that, you could be evacuated, you could be dislocated from wherever you are at a moment's notice. Grab bag, like have that grab bag, have that ability to sustain yourself for 3 days. Or even 3 hours, really. It's going to be more than most people have. Kieran said, it's wild, mate. I'm on the northern beaches and we're getting hammered. Yep, I watch them control and direct it on a simple weather app. Madness going on up there. But thinking about that. More protests. I'll go over the Dutch protest now. They've stepped it up. They're not just blocking. This one I thought it just amused me. Sometimes I'll just put up things that amuse me. They're not just blocking those highways. What they've gone, the farmers have shipped in manure and dumped the manure. So they've actually poured manure on the government offices so they can't get in or out of their office because there's all this manure there. I thought it just amused me. I thought it was funny. Good way to protest. Very, very pertinent way to protest. Hamburg in I was about to call it something else then. I won't. In Germany, in Deutschland, Hamburg officials tell residents to prepare for hot water rationing amid energy crisis. So I want you to put yourself in those shoes right now. Hey, you live in a developed country. Let's say, like you're a German resident here in one of the biggest cities in one of the most developed countries in the world. You're going to have to ration hot water. This is like World War II type stuff. I shouldn't probably bring up World War II because Germany was, not on our side, but you're one of those European residents in World War II, and all of a sudden you got to ration things. You're at the peak. You're at the top of the pyramid here. But this can happen anywhere. Imagine this happens in Australia. Hey, you can't use hot water anymore. Do you have an ability to create hot water yourself? This is instantly what I looked at this and I was like, okay. I can boil water. I have wood fires. I have, cast iron sort of gear and stuff like that. Camping sort of stuff set up. Do you have that ability? If you don't, start to think about that. Again, turn on a tap. Clean drinking water comes out. I don't recommend that you do drink water out of the tap, FYI, but clean drinking water, it's drinkable. Water comes out of taps. That is amazing. You're now richer than 90% of the world because you have that ability. You turn another tap, hot water comes out. It's like, this is mind-blowing. This is something that everyone takes for granted, though, and we should not take this sort of shit for granted. We should really think about that. What's the higher light official is saying, good distraction from RBA rate blaming climate for food and logistic shortages. That was one thing that I saw when I looked at it in the news. They're like, oh, these floods in New South Wales are going to affect food prices even more. And then they just really went into, like they said, even more. And then they just really went into how floods are affecting food prices. And I was like, yeah, even more. Don't forget that even more part, because they were already affected. What other factors are affecting our food prices? Why are you not telling the people this? Or more to the point, why are people so dumb that they don't realize it, where they just go like, oh, Putin, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, floods, yeah, that makes sense. It's like, how about irresponsible and systemic failures in our financial system, in the people that guide our financial system for years? How about that? How about we talk about that? No, we're not allowed to talk about that? Okay, all right. All right, what else we got here? All right, let's, okay, I'll just touch on this one. This was sent to me from a source on Instagram, talking about AdBlue. From the end of the year, AdBlue will no longer be manufactured in Australia. WA truckies are starting to sound the alarm. A lot of other truckies within Australia are starting to sound the alarm. Farmers are starting to sound the alarm within Australia. I can't stress enough how big of a deal this is. It seems like such a small thing. It is a huge deal. You think like rising food prices is a problem? No AdBlue, no mass manufacturing of food, no mass growing of food, no mass pulling of food out of the ground, no manufacturing that into something, no moving that into the greater populations and into population centers, equals starvation on a huge scale. No food. That's what it equals. No anything. Okay? No movement of trucks means no anything for Aussies. I can't stress this enough. AdBlue is absolutely fundamental to the continuation of our society here in Australia. And we're not producing it anymore, and we're not going to by the end of the year. And I don't know where the fuck they're going to get it from, because there's not a lot of it flowing around the earth at the moment, and there's a lot of other lot bigger countries than us that need it, and they'll take it. So start thinking about that. It's happening. It's actually happening. It is. Or as I like to say, a number of months ago, good close personal friend, like one of my best friends, said to me, he's like, when do you think the shit will hit the fan? I said, brother, it's hitting. Like, we're in it now. We just don't realize it. We watch the Hollywood movies and we think it's like we get hit on the head and we wake up in the hospital and the zombie apocalypse has happened. We're like, oh fuck, we're in it. Well, no, it's a slow process that, the water is boiling. where the frog in the pot, the water is boiling, and I'm watching bubbles pop up right now. I'm like, dude, we're in it. This is happening, guys. Okay, the shit is hitting the fan, and we need to now be doing the things, and we need to be doing them a little bit faster now. Don't freak out. Don't run around like the sky is falling or there's bats in your hair screaming. Just now's the time to take the breath, get the intestinal fortitude, get the testicular fortitude if you're so inclined, and focus. Be laser focused right now. Focus on what you need to be doing in order to secure your future, your family's future. Start to connect with your community and build that, and start to connect with this community as well. And we need to start building each other up. We need to start helping each other out. There's been like the culture, I would say our main culture is about tearing things down, and has been for quite some time, tearing each other down, pulling things down. Not anymore. I just saw a story actually about a protest, about climate protests, where they went and glued themselves to a Leonardo da Vinci painting, The Last Supper. It's actually one of my favorite paintings. It's from one of my favorite artists. I'm in another life, I was very artistic, not autistic. Maybe I'm autistic. Very artistic, and very much into art, and very much into art history. And so, like this sort of stuff, I'm like, wow, this is these paintings and things I find fundamentally important to the human condition, to who we are as human beings, to tell our story. And then we've got people destroying it, people bringing it down. Why they're like, oh, the climate's changing. I'm like, why don't you go fucking glue yourself to a petrol tanker? Something that actually fucking makes sense. Why destroy the good things? This is why you can't have nice things, human beings. Anyway, let's shift from that and talk about food. I'm just going to throw up some random stories that I've got here. Where are we? Canada, less Canadian bacon in the market. 3 fires broke out in the space of just a few hours in the St. Hyacinthe area, somewhere in Canada, in the French part of Canada. Result was the death of more than 1,000 pigs. That's a problem. That's a pretty big problem. What else we got food-wise? There's a couple of stories here. Wall of fire blazes as crops burn in Romania. So Romania, Transylvania experience a huge heat wave, and their crops have been set on fire. Got a lot of stuff happening here, isn't there? We're seeing where this is all going. Where's my other story? Okay, I'll just jump into this. So we've got a company called Resolink, which they kind of do. I think it's their insurance sort of investigation type company. Now they've been looking at the incidences of food supply chain faults, essentially, over the past. I think it's the past year, since 2001. Since 2021. Anyway, they started looking into it, and they said, oh, there's thousands. There are thousands of incidences that are happening. What's happening here? So we've all seen, or if you haven't seen this, you should probably look it up. The amount of fires in food manufacturing plants within the US has been huge, and it's been ridiculously huge. Like, you're like, okay, this is suspect. This is utterly suspect, what's going on here. Well, they started looking at that, and they go, that is pretty suspect. That's weird. But it's not just in the US. Destructive fires like those raging across the food factories across the US have suspiciously become commonplace around the world. More factory fires occurred in 2021 than any year in recorded history. Nearly a quarter of the supply chain disruptions globally were attributed to manufacturing plants being set aflame. And I want to put that there again, set aflame, according to the exclusive data compiled by Resolink's Event Watch Monitor database. So you can actually, I think you can go and look up this database as well. Most people should have access to it. Resolink issued 1,946, so that's almost 2,000 factory fire alerts in 2021, an increase of 129% year over year. What we're seeing here, I don't know any other way to describe it, and I'm just going to describe it the way that I see it. What we're seeing here is a systemic attack on our food supply chain. Now, I'm going to bring this back to Atlas Shrugged, because part of Atlas Shrugged is that all those intelligent people, they not only just disappear from the world and say, you turds, sort your own shit out for a little bit, see how that works out. But then they kind of go in there and they they don't really sabotage, but they just allow things to happen and maybe throw a spanner in the works here and there. If I wanted this entire system to crash, that is what I would do. This is essentially how I would do it. I would look at, okay, what are the fundamental parts of the system here? Where can I stick my stick in the spokes and allow it to fall on its face? This is what I would be doing. Who has the motivation to do that? I mean, there are a number of cases. I don't know who's doing it. Maybe it is the most intelligent people on Earth are actually destroying the society so that we can rebuild something better. Maybe it's vegans. I don't know. Vegans are going like, no, our food system sucks. We're going to start destroying it. Maybe it's angry leftists. Maybe it's angry rightists. I highly doubt that. Being that generally right people are conservative. That's what right used to mean, at least. Conservative, they want to keep what we have. Left liberal, they want to destroy what we have. Oh no, they want things to change. And a good mix in between is what we should have: progress and holding on to the old and that which works. But anyway, here's my vegan conspiracy. They want us to eat legumes and I don't know, soybeans only. So that's what they're doing. They're attacking our food supply chain. No, I'm just joking. Again, this is tinfoil hat. It's probably not. It's probably not the vegans. Could be. I don't know. Vegans could have some secret underground. If you're vegan, by the way, I'm not specifically having a go at you. It's just a joke. Maybe they've got some sort of secret underground army that they've trained up, and they're taking out these food systems. Anyway. It's a big concern. It's a huge concern. It's something we really need to keep an eye on. But it's quite obvious now that our food system that we have now is not going to survive. It's not going to survive 5 years. I don't actually even think that it's going to survive a year. I think what we're seeing now, the effect we're seeing now, the way the food system works, it's kind of like a year sort of, not behind, but the ripples take a year to take full effect. So, for example, a crop burning in Romania will be felt in a year's time because people are still eating the crop from last year, just as a very irresolute picture of how the food system works. And there's shorter parts of that. There are things that go from here straight into our mouths, but generally that food system is a long, drawn out process. It's not like a cow is born and we eat it the next day. We fatten it up, it goes out and it eats grass for, months, years at a time, depending on what it is. And then it gets shipped off, and then it gets killed, and then it gets butchered, and then it gets sent out to the butchers, and then they cut it up, and then a human being goes and buys that and eats it. So that takes time. That takes time and effort and inputs all along that scope there. A lot of inputs. Well, those inputs are crumbling. Those inputs are not going to be around for very much longer. And so this whole thing's going to collapse. You need to start taking control of this. You need to be looking at the cow that you're going to eat, pretty much. You need to be doing it within your own community. And you need to be doing that now. You need to be making those links now. All right. That's it for today, everyone. Appreciate everyone jumping on, but I've got to run. As always, send questions through to me if you've got them. Send information through to me if you find something interesting that you want me to talk about. Keep prepping. Like I said, this food system is a huge thing. I'm going to probably try and talk about this again at some other stage in the not too distant future, but we really need to be thinking about this. Just quickly, Kieran said, I've seen letters from government to Aussie beef farmers ordering them to destroy their livestock and are paying them double to do it. So, this is a pretty common story that's starting to come out now, that farmers are being paid to not grow food. All right, gang, that's it. So stay safe out there, keep your eyes open, get out into the garden, start growing food, start connecting with local farmers, and start stockpiling a little bit more food today, because like I said, the normal sheeple are starting to cotton onto this. And at some point, there's going to be a tipping point where people start to where we see the hoarders come out. Don't be a hoarder, be a stockpiler, be a prepper, be a future thinker. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me today. And until next time, Semper Paratus.